who you can have that conversation with. It's I find, and I've done this sometimes myself in the past, where I've put up hypothetical questions on social media, like a story. How would you deal with a situation like that? And the kinds of responses you get are sometimes worth reading.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because it's a third-party example. You don't have to include yourself in it. You could be somebody else's issue somebody's come to you, and you've reframed it on social media so to get other people's perspective on things. And so until you do find that person who you can class as a sounding board, it's also worth utilizing your following to give them hypothetical questions. It keeps them engaged. It gets them to provide you with some of their wisdom. And, it makes people understand that actually, there are things going out there just not just happening to me. There are other people going through this kind of stuff as well. Exactly. Maybe this is how, if I went through it, this is how I dealt with it. Maybe that might be helpful for you. That's always a good
question to both of you. I mean, you're both sole business owners. You guys have initiated and started businesses in your own way. There's a lot of people who sort of find that for them, they look at finding a co-founder, if I can use that. And sometimes it's about friendships, sometimes about friends and family, sometimes it's the work colleague because they're getting on and so forth. Any general views on really there's no right or wrong way, but any views on any of that in terms of co-founding, working with others, working with friends and family? You've had experiences of working with people. I've worked with other people and I've done things on my own. I've got a little bit of experience on both sides. It's difficult, but any thoughts on any? No, you don't have to talk from a personal perspective, but in terms of your own situation. But any thoughts?
Majid, you go first. I've got a very strong opinion on this, but you go first.
Look, I think just because you're on your own, it doesn't mean shit. If I'm to be blunt, if you're going to go do something, you're just going to go and do it. You should just go and do it. You shouldn't always just rely on other people to hold your hand, because when you do that, you could be bitten. And that's happened to me in the past before starting this business, where I've gone into, the first time I started a business officially was in partnership with somebody
else.
Yeah. And it didn't work out. It was something really stupid as well. As a naive young 20-year-old starting a business and having staff and, in a sales company and selling on behalf of bigger companies, and then not getting paid your dues because there was something that you hadn't signed, so they didn't owe you anything. Then you have to go bust and pay your employees for the money. So it was silly little things. It was naive things. It was inexperience. It was a bit of foolishness. So I would rather go out there, learn, get it wrong, fail, and then start again, then rely on someone. That's just me. Me as an individual, I find it difficult to let go. And I think most people who are in business, who are passionate about what they do find it difficult to let go, which is why it ends up becoming so lonely at the top as well.
Okay.
But if you're going to go and do something, just go and do it. Yes, of course, you rely on other people for their expertise, then find other ways. I have people working for me, but not as employees, as independent contractors, specialists in their fields. But I'd rather not keep employees, for example, for that particular field or for that particular business.
Okay.
So it depends on different things, but if you're a business owner, you just got to get on with it. It's as simple as that.
Ajmal, talk about co-founding and partnerships.
Never get friends and family involved in business. When the going is good, it's not good. It's great, but then when the fallout happens, the fallouts can be very nasty, and it's the end of friendships and family as well. So I've got one brother, two sisters. I will never get involved in a family business with them, and the reason is very simple. I respect the relationship too much to allow anything to potentially detriment that. I would rather go out there and do business myself and fail myself rather than ruin the great relationships I've got with my siblings. And one thing we've all learned from our sort of senior, elder generation, my father was involved in family business. Yes, when the going's good, it's great, but then when the fallout happens, the fallouts can last for decades. And I don't want to put myself into that position.
Okay.
I generally I agree with you. There are exceptions.
Yeah, of course.
And when I started this business that I run, I started with my best friend.
Right.
And we experienced so much in the business together. He decided to go a different way, and we decided to part ways. And I took over the business. It was quite early on in the business, within the first couple of years. But there are exceptions and I believe that's because of the kind of person he is,
right?
And because I'm the way I am, and we are very clear with each other. And there were no written contracts in this partnership. There was nothing like that. And it's the old school. The man shakes a hand, and his word is his bond, and it was like that. And whilst I agree with you, and I would never want to go into business with another friend or a family member, I have had the honour and blessing of being in a good, amicable partnership.
So first, what's your thought on that?
So I think you can co-found the right way. There is about understanding each other's in terms of skill sets and so forth. I've seen people who, you've got a technical person and you've got somebody who's more sales. They can't get together. It depends on personalities.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right in terms of family and close friends, because you're getting into the relationship, not necessarily the skills. So when you talk about skills and what you're bringing to the table, it either is knowledge or is skills. What you're doing is you're talking about relationships here. So, but you can find people who've got either knowledge or skills or capital and so forth. Okay. I'm sort of positioning myself where I'm a partner of choice to some people. So I bring hopefully some capital in some cases, maybe some knowledge, some skills, some connections. Okay. I want to try and do that. So I'm positioning myself as a partner to others, and I'm encouraging partnership working. It's not for everybody. You can co-found the right way.
Yeah.
And it's about having set sort of expectations, managing expectations. Okay. But you are absolutely right. Friends and family, I think, is a generally no-no. But I have seen at the same time families who do work really well because it's about trust. Because it is lonely, it's tough out there, and when it gets really tough, we sometimes you go through phases where ill health or something happens and so forth, and you need people away from maybe employees or the management team that you can sort of work with. So it's all, as I said, there's no one brush that fits all.
I think it also depends on the model of what you're managing and what you've started or what you've co-founded. If it's like a commercial business, then because money is involved, you see the difference in people's personalities. But for example, if you're running a non-for-profit or like a soup kitchen or a food bank, right? There's no personal money involved there, and there's no profitability to be kind of protective over. You see that the same people who might not get on in business, they'll get on really well in that kind of an endeavor because the incentive is different. So you think that, well, what was the difference? Money. It's money.
Money is also power. It's about positions. It's about titles. It's about who gets the limelight, who's the front face, and who's the back end, and who's getting.
But that can happen in charitable organisations as well.
Resentment happens.
Yeah, who gets the limelight? Who's doing the promoting? Who's the face of the charity or the not-for-profit? Who is the face of it? Who is going out there doing the marketing?
Ego comes in. Is our enemy, and it's testing. We learn a little bit about ourselves as well in terms of our patience and so forth. So it is absolutely testing. So let's transition to family businesses. I mean, you talked about family businesses. You've been involved with people who run family businesses and so forth, and you've made a statement out there that you respect the relationship and so forth. So if somebody already is in a family business and maybe second generation, third generation, and so forth, and now they're looking at scaling up, and they're having to put titles now to people's names and structures, and having a framework. Any sort of general, let's talk generally in terms of family businesses, good models and not so good models, and bad practice possibly, or not so desirable practice. Any thoughts there?
I think as your business grows, in the early days, everyone does a bit of everything. As your business grows, it's very important to have clearly defined roles and responsibilities and expectations against those roles and responsibilities. Too often businesses grow, it's a little bit woolly, the roles and responsibilities, and that's often the cause of friction. So I would say my one tip would be have very clear roles and responsibilities defined for every member of the role, and they should all be accountable to each other.
At the beginning,
Yeah.
wherever possible.
No, even as
Even-
business
even-
as
even
business
as it
is
grows.
growing. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a client, family-run business, and they have close to 10, so 9 sites
Yeah.
of their business.
Yeah.
And it was started off by the older generation first,
Yeah.
and then they've kind of retired now, and it's been passed on to the next generation. So it's their kids, like their nieces and nephews and kids, and so they're all cousins that are running this business. One of the things that that was starkingly obvious to me, and I'll say this as a person who follows theology, who follows a religion, as a person who is a big believer in these kinds of things. And I can draw this back to one of the common keynote speeches that I get asked to deliver is on success on your own terms. And if you remember, Saf, there are three points that I always talk about: values, purpose, and passions. These guys have nailed it. These guys have nailed their values because they're so driven from a religious perspective. They're not like, outwardly you couldn't tell how religious they were. They don't wear thobes in the business and wear big beards and turbans and whatnot. No, they're still smartly dressed and stuff. Not to say the thobes aren't smartly dressed, I wear thobes as well. But they'll have specific things that they do in the business which align with their values. So their values are driven by their religious beliefs, being the kind of person, making sure people aren't paid late because that's not right, that's incorrect, that's haram, as an example, making sure they got the prayer places there, and they give so much to charity that it's everybody knows them for that, but not to say because of that they're this way inclined. What I'm saying is, as a family, you can tell their upbringing has been done in a certain way. Their upbringing has been to serve. Every time I go to any store, the managers will tell me, no orders from above. Whenever we have guests in our store, we can't let you go empty-handed. You're not here to do your shopping, you're here to provide a service. But we're going to give you some gifts to go home with. This is hospitality, being hospitable. So those core elements of their personalities that the elders have been filtered down into the next generation, not only from home, but within the business. And whatever the next person does with them, wants to take advantage of them, whatever, that's their business. But they won't stop being nice. And I've noticed as a family business, when you've got all the kids on the same page, and you've got a clear leadership role as well, from the elders of that generation taking leadership, qualified leadership, not just because they're the elder, because they've been in the business longer, they understand the business better, they have certain acumen that's obviously important for that business. They all respect that person. So it's like the hierarchy. The eldest gets the respect, the ones next down to them, they will get the respect by the ones younger than them. So that culture is going to be extremely important in a family-run business, knowing your boundaries and knowing how to move forward with that.
Ajmal, any thoughts on family businesses, and particularly in terms of hierarchies and organization charts and so forth? Because mostly, I mean, again, we're probably on the same page here. People are given the position because of their age and where they are in terms of
Chachaji might not know shit about the running of the business, but because he's Chachaji, he's the leader. He makes the decisions. It doesn't work.
I'm not a huge fan of family business. I think it should be, if you're growing a business, recruit the skill set rather than the relative. Because then, I think it's just much more. It just makes much more commercial sense to recruit for the right skill set for the correct role.
Okay,
that's what's going to grow your business.
Okay, so succession planning. If you're talking about passing from one generation to another. You're talking about giving advice now, giving value to others, and if somebody's looking at this and they talk about succession planning, and I sort of off the top of my head think about Rupert Murdoch and the succession program. I don't know whether you've seen that, and he's talking about planning the who's going to take over the Murdoch empire, and that's a big sort of issue for business owners, parents in terms of next generation and so forth. They've got to decide either they sort of pass it over to one person, or they split the brand, the entity, or they look at potentially exiting and so forth. And it's difficult for anybody who's put their heart and soul into a business. And I know quite a few who get to the point where they're not sure where to go, and it gets very emotional. So
I think from being a Muslim, we have guidelines. As I now bring this in again into business, but we have guidelines with business and family related stuff. It's like inheritance. People talk about inheritance, who to give what. Our religion has clear prescriptions on who gets what, how much, in terms of your estate after your demise, unless it's been gifted beforehand. That's the exception. So when you're talking about succession planning, I would relate that to the element of gifting before you're gone, rather than whatever's left at the end and you write it in a will, this, that, and the other. As a business is as an asset, just like you might have a bar of gold, it's an asset. So you might split that, or you might just gift all of that to one person. The business I would treat as an asset. Yeah. So if I have offspring, and I'm talking about succession planning, it might be better for me to put it in a trust for them rather than them running it themselves to the ground, Because my kids might not be competent at running the business. So with the best will in the world, rather than them running the business, I would rather get somebody else and hire them to run the business and let them be the shareholders and reap the rewards like that. So I think not every business deserves to be passed down to family because they may not be competent to run it.
Okay. So let's move on in terms of scaling a business, and because obviously that's what sort of intrigued us about your good self. Because when I came across TikTok and I thought, okay, who's this young chap talking about
who's this handsome, sexy Scottish accent?
And you're absolutely right. When the thing that intrigued me most was the value that you give on your platform, because there is a lot of value, and you are you're very clear in your message. So this is where I am. This is where my is. It's not fluff there. It's very direct, very clear, short, sharp bites. Yeah. And there's a lot of nuggets there, a lot of nuggets of wisdom. So we'll try and get to some nuggets of that wisdom. So these are your sort of core beliefs, I would suggest. So family is one of them. You spoke about that. Obviously you've got your vision there. You've got your enemy that you're marking. You've talked about the biggest thing that that you're well known for is about. Forget about differentiation for now. Just be better. If you've got these 10 things, just be better. Be better in terms of customer service, be better in terms of the response, be better in terms of all of that. So that's quite clear. What else is there in terms of, your general sort of what I would call your blueprint of your knowledge? We could talk for 12 hours, but I want to be a little bit more punchy with some of these nuggets, man. Give value to our audience.
Let's get punchy, right? There's no point doing a good job if no one knows about it. Spend half your time promoting your business. I spent 8% of my sales on marketing the business, and we've got 30 different channels. So there's no point doing a good job if no one knows about it. Get out there and tell the world. So spend half your time marketing, 8% on sales, 30 different marketing channels. If you can't do 30, do 20. If you can't do 20, do 10, right? That's that. Next thing is customer, how to grow the customers. There is no magic formula for growing customers. All you need to do is go out there into the world and just try and find one customer today. I've got a reminder in my diary, 4:30 every single day. What have I done today to bring in new business into this business? Because as business owners, we forget we're dealing with the stress, the headaches, the issues, the problems, and we sometimes forget that we should actually be out there promoting to the customers. So one customer at a time, that's how I grow my business. And I've got a reminder in my diary to go and get that one customer every single day. And before you know it, that one customer. My previous business, we ended up having 13,000 regular customers, which is a quarter of the population of the town. buying food from us. So that was fantastic.
So talk about leadership then. What does leadership mean to you? If somebody says,
Leadership, know the way, go the way, show the way, roll up your sleeves, prove to the team that you can actually do what you're doing, do what you're preaching. Because if you do that, you will command much more respect. And that's one of the key things that I've done. I know every single part of the business, from bloody cleaning the toilets to making the dough to sort of serving the customers to appearing on TV to doing bloody podcasts. You name it, I can do it. Know the way, go the way, show the way.
We sell on price, but not on value and service. If somebody said that to you, what would you say?
We sell on
price. We sell on price, not on value, on service, not on the differentiators. Our differentiator is price. We're just cheap.
Right.
Or we sell on price. If somebody said that to you, what would be your thing? Price is their main focus. And
that is often a race to the bottom. So the way your pricing strategy should be confident. And the one thing, and we see a lot of this in the Asian businesses, if someone's doing well, you'll open up a new business, you'll just undercut them and you'll try and win the way. And to a certain extent, that's what we've done with Domino's. Yeah. Their pizzas are £20, we've just gone in at £10. So I think having a good pricing strategy is good. Cheaper prices are okay as long as you're adding value to the customers.
Yeah, there's actually, from my experience, the cheapest paying clients have been the most problematic clients because they don't value what they actually and because I I'll give you an example. Even for places of worship, we've got a product called Faith Safe, and this is heavily discounted. Even at a local mosque, they were asking us to do certain things for them, and I wasn't going to charge them. Funny enough, the trustee of the mosque said, Majid, don't make that mistake. I said, what do you mean? And he goes, charge them. Charge them what you'd normally charge, give them a discount so they feel it. They feel that they're paid for something. But then if you want, you can donate it back to the mosque. That's exactly what I did.
Good.
Next point. Somebody says, we get all our business from word of mouth. We don't do business development. Thoughts on that?
Word of mouth is actually still very, very good point, right? In the world of social media, AI, TikTok, videos, good old-fashioned word of mouth is still, I think it still carries a lot of weight in business.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of it.
They don't do business development, so they're relying on word of mouth. You think that's okay?
If you're only relying on word of mouth, bad move, risky strategy. You can't afford... You can't afford...
Because word of mouth is not controllable, but you can't control word of mouth.
We're not talking to each other anymore. We used to be on the phone to our family, friends, relatives all the time. No one's talking to anyone anymore. You're not sitting on the bus or on a train talking to anyone. You're looking at your phone. So make sure that medium, that message that you want to put out is on the phone that's in people's faces.
So when you've got that 4:30 sort of reminder for yourself, you can't rely on word of mouth because you can't sit there and say, it's word of mouth that's going to work for me.
Word of mouth. Word of mouth is great, but you've also got to make sure that you're doing all of the other marketing channels as well.
Give us your view on word of mouth, because I know it's important for your business. And
of course. For me, word of mouth comes off the back of my marketing through networking. So for me, for my consultancy, I can't recall the last time I actually paid for advertising. But the reason for that is because my investments have traditionally gone into me meeting people, attending events, traveling to events, building relationships. Because today I might meet Ajmal Mushtaq. Ajmal Mushtaq may not need my services, and I'm not going to sell my services to you. I'm going to try and add value to what you're already doing without expecting you to buy from me. That will leave a sweet taste. Then you might not need my service, but you might know somebody who might need my service. And actually, you know what? I know a guy who does that. Let me make an introduction. That's traditionally how I've got work for me. Now, me being me, I am content with what I have. Contentment doesn't mean you stop being ambitious. You can still be a hard worker whilst being content. I have recently wanted to, or been thinking about changing some of the strategy for growing the business. I haven't wanted to in the past. Like, growth wasn't my focal point. It was sustaining, because I've never lost a client. I've only lost clients out of things out of their control and my control, like COVID, closed the business, gone. So 2 businesses. In 15 years, I've only lost 2 clients. And these are like from people who have had me as a retained consultant. So now with changes in my personal circumstances, like my family wanting to join, my kids wanting to join the business, that business has to grow and sustain that. But they can't just inherit it, they can't just get a job in the business just because they're my kids. So there are different things that I'm having to think about. But overall, back to your point, to summarize, yes, word of mouth. You can't replace word of mouth with anything else. Social media is still an indirect way of selling or indirect way of marketing. Word of mouth and what people have said about you, of their own experiences of dealing with you, I would say is more of a direct way of marketing rather than an indirect, because there's first-hand level one connection.
Ajmal, one for you. TikTok gurus are telling me to work on the business, not in the business. But how do I do that? I can't do that.
You've got to make time. So the way you do it is, whatever you're doing in the business, wrap it around with systems, processes, training. You perfect that part of the job or that part of the role, and then train someone to those exacting standards, and then that allows you to remove yourself from that role, and then what you do is you actually work on the business. I'm a big fan of that. You've got to work on the business, not in the business. But you've also got to work in the business at the start to get a deep understanding of all of the different complexities in the business.
Majid, working on the business, in the business, everybody's saying work on the business, but I haven't got time to work on the business because I'm so knee-deep in it.
Yeah, this is a trust issue. You don't trust anybody but yourself, which isn't abnormal. It's normal to do that. Eventually, you will have, it depends on your model, but you might have somebody doing the working on the business for you. But the question will always remain, will this have that same understanding of your level of direction or your direction as you? So on the business, in the business. Of course, like Ajmal said, I agree with him. You have to work in the business to understand the runnings of the business, but eventually there may be a question whether you're qualified to level that business to a higher level, move it to the higher level. And then you might want to hire somebody to work on that side of things, of the business.
Okay.
But your involvement can't be negated.
Okay. Somebody said to me, all my customers are the same. I treat everybody the same. Yeah, I can't differentiate because I asked them the question, how would you, what are your A customers, B customers, C customers, and potentially D customers? Who do you get your most value on? He says, whether they give me £1 or whether they give me £10,000, they're all the same. What's your view on sort of customer segmentation, customer analysis, and being able to focus on the right customers?
Interesting. The key thing about that question is, or any business question in business, is there's no one right answer.
No.
And that's where, that's where business becomes very, very difficult. A low value customer might be low value today, but if you treat them right, they could be the biggest customer tomorrow. And I've actually experienced that. We've had guys just buying like very small products, small volumes. They still get the great service, a great product, and then it's turned out 2 years down the line, they're one of the biggest customers in the business. The flip side is, you look at the analysis, whoever's bringing you more profit, you focus on them more. But yeah, it's a tough one.
It is a tough one because you could be guilty of being perceived as discriminatory.
Yeah.
Because you're getting more money off one person or one customer, you treat them in a different way to somebody who you're not getting as much money from, or you're not making so much money from. So that could be perceived that way. It depends on what element of that customer journey you're referring to as well. If it's obviously in a company, when somebody's going to go and buy a very expensive asset, more time is going to be needed to make considerations on whether that asset is worth purchasing or not.
Yeah.
But if it's something like a pen from a shop, you're not going to take that much time in considering all the considerations of buying a pen from the customer's point of view. But from the seller, the person who's selling that product, it's tricky, isn't it? Because ideally, you'd like to be consistent in your approach. Just because somebody's spending less doesn't mean you treat them any different.